Welcome friends to Farm Fresh Designs 59. About an hour ago, I put up a video where I showed you all of the 9 pieces in the new IOD Holiday Collection. So in this video, I'm making 3 projects using just some of the products. Now, as I continue to make videos with all of these different 9 pieces, I'll just put them in a playlist so that once the products come in that you've ordered, then you can refer back to the playlist so you can kind of see what I made with the products. The first piece starts out with the scrap piece of wood that I painted with Waverly Black Ink chalk paint. And I made sure it was good and dry, but we live in North Carolina and it's really hot right now. So when it's pretty and the sun is shining and it's hot, a lot of times I just will sit it out on the front porch and it dries rather quickly. Once it's good and dry, then I'm going back over it with Dixie Belle Crackle Finish. Now, depending on how thick you want the cracks to be, it determines how much crackle finish you put on it. So if you put a lot of crackle finish on it, then the cracks will be a little bit deeper. So when it dries, it's shiny. So that's where the shiny part's coming through. Once it gets all good and dry, and it does take a little while, even out in the sun, then I go back over it with Rust-Oleum Chiffon Cream. And when you're putting on paint over crackle finish, you don't want to keep brushing back and forth because it's going to mess up the crackle. So it's just best to just swipe over it one time and make sure you've got it. Then once it's dry, now you can see how the crackle finish shows up. And then what I'm using is a mixture of 2 Dixie Belle Voodoo Gel Stains. I mix a little bit of Tobacco Road and then just a tiny bit of the Voodoo Gel Stain that's all natural. And it just gives it more of a little chocolatey finish. And so I'm liking that finish right now. Sometimes the Tobacco Road is just a little bit too dark. So I'm going back over it with this mixture of Voodoo Gel Stain because I want it to look a little bit more antique. Now, that doesn't mess up the crackle finish at all. It just kind of highlights it just a little bit. So as I brush that on, then I wipe back over it with a baby wipe just to kind of tone it down a little bit so it won't be quite so thick. And then as I'm using the Voodoo Gel Stain, if I decide I've wiped off too much, then I can always go back. So now what I'm doing is I'm actually using the IOD air dry clay, and I really like it. It's kind of light and airy compared to the other air dry clays that I've used before in the past. Now this particular mold, I was so excited to see this come out. It's the first pumpkin mold that any company has come out with that I've seen. I have searched and searched, so I was super tickled when this one came out. And the name of the mold is called Hello Pumpkin. Now, there's 2 different pumpkins in it. There's a larger one and a smaller one, and then there's 4 different leaves. So when you're using air dry clay, you kind of put it in your hand and kind of roll it around and get it warm. And then you push it into those molds. And the IOD molds have a little micro rim around it. So you just push it down with your thumb and get the excess off. And then I like to go back with like an old gift card or an old credit card. And I just like to smooth out the back. And then there's 2 regular looking leaves. And then there's one little tiny little bud. And then there's another leaf that's kind of curved around. Now, something that I forgot to hit the little record button was that I actually did 2 of the larger pumpkins a little bit earlier because this wood piece is a really long rectangular piece of wood. And my husband just recently made me a really large wood box made out of some barn wood that came from my father-in-law's estate that I will be attaching it to. Now, this transfer is from, I think it's from the Brocante IOD transfer set. And I'm not really sure what it says because it's not in English. And so I don't know. I just like French script, and I wanted to add just a little bit extra to it up at the top. Just to kind of add a little bit more interest and character to it. And those two pumpkins are the larger pumpkins, and I think they're so pretty. So in one of the larger pumpkins, yes, it's made of the air dry clay, but I'm going to go ahead and paint it before I put it down. And so it's dried just a little bit. It's not dry a whole bunch. So this is some Dixie Belle pumpkin spice paint. And it actually, I bought it last year, so I don't know if they're still carrying it. But it was, I bought it after the season was over with, so I got it on sale. So initially, that was why I bought it. And when you have molds that are still just a little bit wet, you just lightly pounce the paint on it so that it won't mess up the design on it. And the design on these pumpkins are beautiful. Now on this one, I'm using the Waverly, I think it's celery. It's a more of a lighter green paint. And I'm one of those people who likes the more muted tones when it comes to fall decor. And if you go back and look at my other videos, you'll notice that I use a lot of blues in my fall decor as well. So the other large one is the Waverly Moss Green. And then this last one, which is the smaller one, is Dixie Belle. I believe it's French Linen, which is more of a taupey color. Now on this one, it's going to be sitting up on top of the two bigger ones. And because I don't want it to sit around too long, I basically just paint the edges of it before I then glue it onto the top of the two pumpkins. And I use Titebond glue because it sets up fairly quick, and it's really permanent. And there's a lot of crafters right now that are using it. You can get it at Walmart. So here's what all the pieces look like for right now. And then I've got all of the different leaves that I want to attach to it. So I kind of play with it a little bit until I get it to the place where I like where the leaves are. Now, once those leaves are on, then I go back to that little mixture of the two Voodoo gel stains, and I paint the leaves, those brown colors, and the stems of the pumpkin. Now, because it's already glued on, then I do use a real small brush that has, a very tight bristles, because I want to make sure that I don't get it on to that wood sign. But, if you've watched my channel before, I always kind of say, it's just paint, and I can always fix it. But because I've already done so much to that particular piece of wood, I'm just trying really hard not to get it on it. But just always keep baby wipes close by, just in case I do mess up. And so I just go ahead and get all those painted. And there's the wood box that my husband made. And I drilled 2 little holes, one on either side. And then I drilled some little holes in the wood box. And the signs that I'll be attaching to it, I will use it's rusty wire. And I just take that wire and twist it onto the sign, and then I push it through on that wood box and then twist it on the inside. But isn't that gorgeous? It's so beautiful. And this could be actually something that I could sit out on the porch. I don't use a lot of real pumpkins because they go to the bad. So, but I just love this box. And I have a vendor booth, and this will not be going in it. Okay, so on the next piece, I'm going to be making another sign for that wood box. But on this one, I'm going to be using 2 of the different molds. It's the one that's called Ginger and Spice, and it has all the little gingerbread people on it. And then I'm going to be using the Christmas tree mold. Now, I used the Amazing Casting Resin, and if you've never used it before, it's 2 parts. There's part A and part B. You pour it in the little measuring cup. You pour the part A in it, and then you put the part B in it, and you need to be ready to stir it and pour it in because it sets up really fast, but it dries in about 10 minutes. Now, when you put air dry clay in a mold, you need to dust it with cornstarch, but when you're using resin, you don't have to put anything in the mold. It just pops right out. So when it comes out, it's all white. So now I've got a couple extra little molds on this piece of paper right here that I'm using, but these are going to be used for a different project later on. So I painted the little heads and the hands and the feet with that same Dixie Belle pumpkin spice. And when I bought it, I thought I would just be using a little bit. But here lately, I've been using a lot, and I just think it's beautiful. And it's perfect for what I'm using it for. So they're already white. So I've got all of those the head and the hands and the feet painted with the pumpkin spice. And now I'm going back with Waverly. It's just a red paint. And I paint all of their little clothes with it. Then the Christmas tree, I had actually already made it up with resin because when I first got these molds, I wanted to see kind of how big they were, and I wanted just kind of like a little model of them so that when I was going to use them later on, I would already be able to kind of lay it on a project to see if it was going to fit good or not. Now, the green paint that I'm using is actually Waverly, and I believe it's a fern color. It's the color, I think, of a Christmas tree. And there's a lot of detail on this. And so it takes a little while to get it all painted and to make sure it gets in all those crevices. But it's also made out of that resin. Now, I made another board, just like I did on the other one. I made it, but I didn't put the crackle finish on that particular one. I just painted it with the Rust-Oleum chiffon cream. Now, and I went on and put some of I did do the crackle finish on this one too. And then I put the voodoo gel stain on it, but I wanted something a little bit extra. So this is an older IOD stamp called Le Courrier, and it's just looks like an old newspaper, and I really like it. So and I like it because you can just stamp it right there on the little plastic piece, and you don't have to take it off and put it on a thin mount, unless you just want little separate parts of it. Because all those little pieces, they do come off the stamp, but you can also use it as just one whole big piece. So I put that first piece right in the middle, and then I'm just going back on either side and putting a little bit more script on it. And then these are I painted all the details on the gingerbread. I painted their little eyes with a little white dot, put a little bit of red on their cheeks, and I painted white on the trim. And love that little Scotty dog. So, so cute. But this is also going to go on that wood box. Now, it was a lot of trouble to get that first little sign on, so you're not going to see it attached to the wood box. But it's beautiful. I love it. So I will be using that wood box up until probably a little bit before Thanksgiving. And then I'll be moving over and changing that sign and putting the little Christmas tree sign on that box. Now, if you're liking the video, make sure to give it a thumbs up. And if you're not part of our family, I would love it if you would subscribe to our channel. So here's my next project. This one, oh, I love it so much. Now, this is using the stamp called Portobello Road, and it's all of those different pieces that are Victorian looking pieces. And this one in particular is the piece that is the picture of the bakery window. It's just beautiful. I'm so excited about it. So I put it on a thin mount, and I'm using IOD black ink, and then I just use a baby wipe to kind of go around and wipe that little excess piece. Now this is some really heavy, kind of a creamy paper that you get in the artist section at Hobby Lobby. And when you use a stamp, you put it down, you hold it with one hand, and then you kind of move your other hand around to press that stamp down. Now, I've already stamped that little Victorian lady, and then the last piece that I'm going to stamp is the lamp post. And I just love all the different pieces of it. And I've got so many things that I want to do with this particular stamp. So this is probably my favorite piece in all of the collection, just because of what I know that I'm going to be doing with it. Now, I'm putting it all on this heavy cardboard right now because you're going to see in just a minute what I'm going to do with the different pieces. Now, with that little lamppost, I'm trying to be really careful and just keep my fingers kind of going down the sides of, or right down the middle of it, so the ink doesn't kind of slide over to the side. Now, this is another piece of that really, really heavy cardboard, and I'm putting it on with Mod Podge. Normally, I use Pen Art decoupage varnish, and that's the medium that I usually use. But because this cardboard is so thick, then I need Mod Podge because it's just a little bit thicker. Now, I'm very carefully just cutting all around the edges. I think some people call it fussy cut, where you just go all around the edges. But if I leave just a little bit left of that particular print piece in that picture, it's okay, because it is, the black ink on top of that paper. So people would, they're not going to expect it to be exactly all the way to the very edge of that piece. And I made sure that those two heavy pieces of cardboard were good and dry before I started cutting. And I just love it. I can't wait for you to see what I've done with it. And it takes just a little bit to get it all cut, but I want to be really careful with it because of what I'm going to be using it for. And I end up using several different pairs of scissors. And when you get around to all the detail, I use just a little tiny scissors and stuff. But I just think it's so pretty. And I like the bakery and I like the lamppost. So if you've been watching my channel lately, I've been making some shadow boxes. And they are been really popular. And so when I started working on different projects from all of the different collections, then I wanted to make a shadow box somehow, some way, out of this particular stamp. Now, about 2 weeks ago, I went to Walmart, and over there in the craft section, they had 3 wooden boxes that came together as a set. And I've already used 2 of them for shadow boxes, so if you haven't seen those videos, go back and watch it because it's a lot of fun to make them. And I'm actually using the last one in the little set of 3, and it's the smaller one. I had been saving it, but I really didn't know what for. And I got all of my collection on Thursday, and today it's currently Monday night that I'm making this video, and I have been working so hard all weekend to get all of these pieces. Now, I've got a lot more things that I have made, but I didn't want this video to be too long, so I'll continue to make videos in the next the next couple weeks with all of the pieces that I've made, but I will continue to add to it. But I also have got some new decoupage papers that are going to be coming in that I'll be using for some videos, so you'll have to be watching for that. Now, this little lamppost, this one was a little bit tricky because the little lamppost is so thin, and I didn't want to accidentally cut into it because, well, it was a lot of work to get those glued on and everything. So you'll see in just a few minutes how I add all to it. So on the little box that I have left, I painted it with, I believe I painted it with linen white, the Rust-Oleum linen white. And I painted it all the inside and out. And then what you'll see how I attach all of these pieces, because you're probably thinking, but Myra, these are flat pieces of paper. How in the world are you going to add them to a shadow box? Well, in just a second you'll see, because it turned out kind of neat. Okay, so now I have 5 real Jenga pieces. I know that you can buy those little smaller pieces at the Dollar Tree, but here lately, I can't find those things at all. I guess once people, see them at Dollar Tree, a lot of people that do Dollar Tree crafting, they use those a lot. So it's really hard for me to find those at all. So these are just some Jenga pieces that came from the grandkids collection, so they don't know that Grammy's using these. And I'm just gluing, I believe it's 5 different pieces with the Tite Bond glue. And I'm using that little level right there because I want to make sure that they're all centered and all flat, because I'll be using that to put on the back of that bakery piece. And then on that little woman, it's just a little skinny piece, and I think I got those at the Dollar Tree as well. They're just little skinny pieces that they're in that same Jenga kind of fashion. And then I'm going to use, once it gets really good and dry, then I'm going to use Tite Bond glue again. Now, I can't find the footage for painting that box, but you'll see it over to the left. And also, in that stamp, there are 2 different particular stamps. And it's like something that you would see like the brick on a wall. And one of the stamps is kind of a bigger, chunkier brick, and the other one is just a smaller brick. So I used the bigger stamp on this one. So use the stamp on the inside of the box, just on the back of it. I didn't use it on the side at all, and you'll see why just a little bit later. And so right now I'm getting that piece of paper and just gluing it on. And then I think I probably set something heavy on top of it, just to make sure that it's good and dry before I begin to attach it. Now, one thing about those boxes, they had like little twine rope handles on either side because they were really meant to be trays. But I wanted to cover up those holes. So this is actually just one of those pieces of wood you can get at the Dollar Tree. So on one side, I'm using one of the doors from that stamp set. And I'm putting it on the far side of the box. So on the one side, you've got the little bakery window and display. And then on the other side, I'm putting the door. Now, and see how I took that little lamp and I glued it to the very edge of that box. Now, on the other side, I'm using the window stamp. So when you think about it, if you're going to tell a little story about this shadow box, when you come up to the bakery, you walk into the door and you go up to the display counter and, purchase something. But on the other side of it, where the little bakery display is the window. And so I just think, okay, you're walking up to the bakery and you want to peep in the window and see what they've got in the display case. And then you walk around to the other side and go through the door. Now, what I'm doing now is this is another piece of that wood, and this is a stamp that kind of mimics what it would look like to have one of those little canopies that kind of like comes over in front of the door, and it kind of keeps it, when you've got rain, kind of keeps you dry as you're first coming out of the door. And so I'm just using that stamp, and well, this was a little hard because the stamp was shorter than the piece of wood was. I'm trying to kind of match it all up. And, well, this part was the kind of hard part, so I had to take my time with it because I want to get it all covered. And I painted it also in that same paint that I used on the outside of the box. Now, my husband went out there and he took a piece of wood and he made like this little, I don't know how you would say it. It's like the little ledge that canopy would kind of sit upon. And I probably could have done it myself, but it was going to be a little piece of wood and it had to be kind of a wedge that I was going to put between the top of the box. See, there it is right there, between the top of the box. And then I was going to put that little canopy on top. So I was afraid if I did it, I'd cut my fingers off. So he's better with tools. So I kind of talked him into doing it for me. Now, see on the sides, those little pieces of wood kind of extend on the back side of that little shadow box, but I'm okay with that. And that's where all the little pieces are. And you can see how that little wedge is glued onto the front. And I used a different camera angle to see, so you can see a little bit better. And here's the final piece. Oh, I am so in love with this. And you know, I could have gone back and put watercolor on it. And see, I also put the brick around the doors, and I used the mask that comes with it so that the brick wouldn't kind of stamp over on top of the door. But I'm so in love with this piece. And I could have used watercolors to make it, you know, have a little bit more color in it, but I'm not real good with stuff like that, and I worked so hard on this piece. I am happy with it being just black and white, but I love this, and it's just my little shadow box, and it's just made out of cardboard and a little wood box. So, friends, we are at the end of the video, and I have jam-packed it with some big old pieces, and they're my favorite pieces that I've worked on since I got the products in last Thursday. And so I wanted to show you these first because I am so in love with all of them. And none of these are going to my vendor booth because I love them. I love the wood box. And frankly, I don't want to get rid of the wood box because that wood came from my father-in-law's barn. And barn wood is too expensive and it's too valuable these days. And then here's my little Christmas sign that I will hang on that box when I take the other one down. And then if you've been with me for a long time, you know that I like to use different pieces multiple times with different kind of designs. So you're probably going to see more things and more designs on top of this wood box. And it is super heavy, but I love it. And I love the two little signs that I'll be attaching to it. And then here's my newest little shadow box with a French bakery or a Victorian bakery. I don't know. I just love it. But I just think it's so pretty. So in the comments below, tell me what's your favorite piece. Tell me what you ordered from this new collection. And tell me, have you been so excited for today? Oh, I've just been on pins and needles. It's been hard to sleep. So here's all of my projects today. So I hope you like them. And I hope you like this new collection, because everything is just beautiful in it. And I'm so excited about all the things that I'm going to be making. But I only put 3 in this video. Otherwise, the video would be like a gazillion minutes long. And, you know, well, y'all got things to do. So anyway, there'll be some more coming. And I'm going to try really hard to have another video out Thursday night with some more pieces from the collection. But make sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel. And thank you so much for watching. Thank you for your support. You know I love you. Have a good rest of the week.